Hey guys, Dimension Master Studios here, how y'all doing? So in case you guys don't know, recently the co-creator of Ninjago, Tommy Andreessen, was on the TTV YouTube channel where he answered some questions that had to do with Ninjago, and he got some interesting questions that relate to Harumi when it comes to the final few episodes of Ninjago. Mainly when it comes to her fate during the final episode and what exactly happened with her, whether or not she got arrested, and the big question of what's going on with her and Lloyd. And according to Tommy Andreessen, when it comes to these two things, they are both up to interpretation and we can choose how things go. And that's pretty much how it's going to be until we get the next season of Ninjago. And in today's video, I honestly wanted to talk about the whole thing involving Lloyd and Harumi, and I wanted to share my thoughts on why Lloyd and Harumi should not get together in the future of Ninjago. So let's just get into this whole thing. So before I get into the main part of the video, I want to give you guys a bit of context when it comes to this whole situation. So for those of you who don't know, who are newer to my channel, for me personally, I don't like the ship between Lloyd and Harumi. I consider it to be hands down the worst ship in the entirety of the show because of how toxic and abusive the relationship is. And one of my biggest worries that I had when it comes to Crystalized was how they were actually going to handle this, and I was worried that they would end up doing something to have Lloyd and Harumi get together by the end of the season. And by the end of the season, they didn't force any romance between the two of them, which I am grateful for, and this is something that I hope we don't get when it comes to the future of the show. But again, overall, I really don't like the relationship between Lloyd and Harumi. I think it's really, really bad because of how toxic and abusive it is, and I even made an entire video a little while back talking about why I don't like the ship. But now I want to share my thoughts as to why Lloyd and Harumi getting together in the future would be a bad idea and why it should not happen in the next series. So let's get into this whole thing. So for starters, it would completely go against Lloyd's character arc. For those who are confused about what I'm talking about, during the Wild Brain era of the show, Lloyd got this big character arc of him getting over Harumi and moving on from her. This started in season 11 during the Ice chapter and continued for the remainder of the Wild Brain era of the show. And I genuinely really like this character arc. It shows Lloyd moving on from this toxic and abusive relationship that he was in with this girl who hated him and wanted him to suffer. Again, it was a really great story arc, and one of my big concerns when it came to Crystalized is how they would end up handling the story arc. And during the events of Crystalized, the season does a lot to go against Lloyd's story arc and undo a lot of his character development. And by the end of the season, his arc just abruptly ends and there's no real conclusion to it. And I feel like having Lloyd and Harumi get together at some point in the future, that would be a terrible idea because that would end up making the past 3 years worth of character development that Lloyd went through absolutely pointless, because you have this big character storyline of Lloyd, again, getting over Harumi and moving on from this toxic relationship, trying to find some way to move on with his life in a positive way, just to completely undo that for pretty much no reason. Again, undoing years of character development and making said character development basically pointless in the end. Another issue that I have when it comes to the two of them getting together is their relationship that we saw during the Onia trilogy. Like I said, Lloyd and Harumi have an incredibly toxic and abusive relationship, and this is something that you can't argue with when it comes to the show. Like, when you boil everything down, Harumi is an abuser who made Lloyd her victim, and Harumi did whatever she could in order to make Lloyd suffer and be in pain. Stuff like manipulating him, betraying him, trying to kill everyone close to him, forcing him to fight against his dad, even going so far as to try to kill him multiple times. And Season 8 made it very, very clear that when it came to Harumi, she was doing all of this because she wanted Lloyd to suffer. Again, the two of them have a really, really toxic relationship when you look at it. And again, you can't really ignore this or deny it when it comes to the show. And to have the two of them basically get together, it has the chance of potentially re-entering that toxic and abusive relationship and just having Lloyd suffer more. Since when it came to that whole relationship, it existed solely for Harumi's benefit, and that was it. Lloyd only suffered as a result of it. Another big issue that I have when it comes to the idea of Lloyd and Harumi getting together in the future is Harumi herself, and how this would completely go against Harumi's entire character. Like I said, when it came to Harumi, she is an abuser who made Lloyd her victim. And when it comes to Harumi, again, she did whatever she could to make Lloyd suffer. And the show made it very clear that Harumi is doing all this because she hates Lloyd. During the Season 8 episode Dread on Arrival, Harumi told Lloyd, "There was never anything between us." During the Season 8 episode Game of Masks, Harumi told Lloyd, "I want you to feel the emptiness that I feel." your father will return, but he won't be the man you remember. And during the season 8 finale, after forcing Lloyd to watch the death of the 4 original ninja and Sensei Wu, an action which brought Lloyd to tears and made him cry, Harumi straight up told Lloyd, "This is what I wanted. To see your father return and for you to lose everything. How does it feel to see the end?" Like, seriously, Harumi has done nothing but hurt Lloyd and cause him to be in pain. And we see this continue during the events of Crystalized. Look no further than episode 14, where during this episode, Harumi is once again trying to kill the original 4 ninja, and she straight up tells Lloyd that she can deactivate the explosives, but she won't. Once again causing Lloyd to be put through more pain and suffering just for Harumi's amusement. And during episode 16, we see the exact same thing, with Harumi being the one to tell Lloyd that the monastery has been blown up and everyone inside of it is dead, crushing Lloyd's spirits once again and bringing him to another low point in his life. Seriously, Harumi has done nothing but hurt Lloyd and has made him suffer. And to all of a sudden have the two of them get together literally out of nowhere after all the pain and suffering that Harumi has caused Lloyd, that makes absolutely no sense. Plus, at the same time, Harumi in general was a horrible person who did terrible things, like actually killing people. I mean, Harumi straight up killed the Emperor and Empress in Ninjago, who were her adopted parents, and showed literally no remorse for any of her actions. Plus, at the same time, Harumi also brought Ninjago to its knees on multiple occasions and never showed any signs of sympathy or remorse for doing those kinds of things. Like, look no further than the season 8 finale, Harumi clearly doesn't care about all the pain and suffering that she's causing in Ninjago City, and once again during Crystalized, we don't really see Harumi have any issues with what the Overlord's doing with having everyone in Ninjago City being turned into crystallized zombies. And just like when it comes to the whole thing of her and Lloyd getting together literally out of nowhere considering everything that we've seen, the same thing applies when it comes to Harumi's redemption by the end of the season. Like, it literally comes out of nowhere and doesn't make any sense given all the terrible stuff that Harumi has done, with Harumi facing no consequence for her actions and being absolved of all the terrible stuff that she did purely because she did one good thing. Like, again, that doesn't make any sense. And again, having Lloyd and Harumi actually get together, that would completely go against Harumi's entire character. Another reason as to why Lloyd and Harumi should not get together in the future is because they're related to each other. This is something that I'm not making up actually. During the season 9 episode 2 Lies One Truth, Harumi presents Garmadon with the idea of him adopting her, and Garmadon ends up doing just that. He adopts Harumi and calls her his child for the remainder of season 9. Again, this makes Harumi Garmadon's daughter, and by extension, Lloyd's sister. Lloyd and Harumi are related to each other. The two of them are siblings. But the weird thing is, during Crystalized, they never even acknowledge this fact. Like, the closest we ever get to this is during the episode Christopher, where Garmadon says that Harumi was like a daughter to him. And I'm not sure why Garmadon's saying this, because Harumi wasn't like a daughter to him. Harumi is Garmadon's daughter. Like, this makes absolutely no sense. But again, yeah, Lloyd and Harumi, they are siblings and they are related to each other. So that's another reason why the two of them just should not get together, because again, they are brother and sister. Finally, one last thing that I want to say as to why Lloyd and Harumi should not get together in the future is that it would end up sending a terrible message. One thing that I've noticed some fans tend to point out when it comes to the ending of the season is that Crystalized is basically sending this message and that abusers can be forgiven. And honestly, I completely get where these fans are coming from, because when you take a look at what actually happens during Crystalized, that is basically what's going on. Remember, Harumi is an abuser who made Lloyd her victim, and during the season, we're seeing this exact message essentially, mainly with Lloyd fixating on the idea of Harumi changing and becoming a better person, which is actually a symptom of an abusive relationship, with the idea being that if you're in an abusive relationship, if you stick it out in the relationship, then eventually your partner will end up changing. But then we have the ending of the season, and although we don't actually see Lloyd forgive Harumi because we never see Harumi apologize for any of her actions or even show any signs of sympathy or remorse for what she's done, that's basically what happens when it comes to the ending of the season, with the ninja and Harumi ending up on good terms by the end of the season. And if Lloyd and Harumi were to actually get together at some point in the future, it will just continue on with this message that abusers could or even should be forgiven. And this goes without saying, but I want to say it anyways, but that is a horrible and irresponsible message to send to anyone. Just seriously, if Lloyd and Harumi get together, it's just going to continue on with this terrible message. So yeah, overall when it comes to the future of Ninjago, I do not think that Lloyd and Harumi should get together. It would completely go against all of Lloyd's wild brain development that he's gone through, making the past 3 years worth of character development absolutely pointless. It would just be a continuation of the toxic and abusive relationship that we saw during the Oni trilogy. It would completely go against Harumi's character. Lloyd and Harumi are brother and sister because of what happens during season 9, and it would continue this terrible message that abusers can be forgiven. Like I said during my video talking about Ninjago United, the idea of Lloyd and Harumi getting together is the number one thing that I don't want to see happen when it comes to the future of Ninjago. And I really, really hope that it does not happen. And so that's pretty much all I got for you guys. So tell me down below, what do you guys think? What are your guys' thoughts on this whole situation? Again, tell me down below, and I hope you guys enjoy. Later, guys, this is Dimension Master Studios, signing off.